Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to my streams that I do occasionally, I guess, for today, June 7th, 2025. Hi, I'm your host, Tristan. I run the YouTube channel Step Back, and the podcast is Probably Not Aliens, you know, when they're active and making stuff. I stream every so often so that you know that I'm alive, and, you know, to keep supporting my work, you have but to watch videos, watch streams, go to my Patreon, whatever it is. You know, I know that I'm not. It's a Saturday night. I'm not expecting a huge turnout. Maybe if things are not, if things are super quiet, maybe we'll call it a little bit early, but that's okay. I just wanted to do a little bit of a drop in to make some content because I had a quiet Saturday night, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So hello everybody. Happy to be here. So normally what I do on these streams is that we kind of open up with a little bit of a preamble, like I'm doing right now, and then we're gonna kind of do stuff that are called the wins, where people share their W's and they share, you know, the things that they have been proud of that have happened in the last month or so, things that they've been, successes that they've had, big or small, you know, things that they feel good about. That's sort of the thing that I always try to go with, and yeah, that's one of the things that we're doing today. Wow, that was certainly not the strongest of openings, but honestly, there are 9 people here, so you know, I am not too concerned. Yeah, how's everyone doing? Who's in the chat tonight? Who's here to say hello? Very tired. Yeah, me too. I had what's it called? I had a big day today. I had you know, there was a big event in our neighborhood that I spent part of the day working at and part of the day enjoying. Nice weather. Went to go see friends. Fun day, but overall just a very hot. Lots of time outside. Lots of time carrying heavy things. Lots of time carrying heavy 3-year-olds, and yeah, the house just quieted down, and you know, I'm happy to have been to be doing something a little bit more relaxing, like hanging out here and talking to you guys. And yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff to get into. Like, I guess I should give like a little bit of a project update. That seems like that would be a smart thing to do. So, new things. What are the new things that I'm up to? I'm currently working on a freelance project that I've been working on basically since January, and it's going to be finished in about 2 weeks, a little under 2 weeks. And once that's done, a lot of my free time, my 5 to 9, goes back to everything else. But I have been working on a new Step Back video. The only thing that has caused the new video to be put on ice briefly is that is one, this freelancing project, but two, I got a really good lead on a really good interview with an expert in July. or I should say, I had a really good interview. I had a really good setup to do an interview with a really with a Berkeley professor, and she was totally on board to be in the. She's totally on board to be in the video, but she wasn't going to be available until July, so I had to kind of put it aside for a little bit and pick it up a little bit later. But it's not forgotten. Plus, with like the podcast is still going. We just are at the moment trying to find nights where Scott and I can actually get together and record, because again, I've been really busy with all of this stuff. So everything is in the process of being made. Things move at different paces based on time and availability, but I like this video is turning out really well. I think I've got like a really good set of experts, and I'm really excited to do that. And once I actually get this last interview done, then I'm like pretty much finished all the other research, and I'm going to start working on the script. And the thing for me is that my process is that once the script is done, then the video making machine starts to really pick up. And I have a bunch of other video ideas that I want to entertain in the near term future that I might work on when like time comes up. But just at the moment, I have had work has like completely so I was in crunch time for this freelance project, and my regular 9-to-5 job also has been really, really, really rough on me lately, just because we're short-staffed, and so I've been doing a bunch of work that I'm really, really not good at, and I don't really like doing, and it's been like, very overloaded. We don't have enough time, don't have enough resources, so I'm just like completely like I spent the last like 3 weeks like completely burnt out at work, and then coming home and trying to spend all of the normal recovery time that a sane person would take, I am taking to finish this freelance project because it has to be done very soon. And I've been hammering away at both, and I am just a fucking husk a little bit. But once they're all done, then it's going to be about. Well, then we're going to be about getting. I have a couple of things that I want to do in the near term future. I want to work on an episode for It's Probably Not Aliens on K2-18b, the so-called planet with life on it that has been discovered about a month ago. I feel like the real hype on that has already been kind of overdone, but I think it's an interesting thing to talk about. There's also talk about me starting a Substack. This is something that I floated to people on the Step Back Discord, and they have seemed pretty happy with it. There was a little bit of some tension because some people don't like Discord for some of its policies, but at this point it is so much the default for any independent writing based content that it basically is the only place you can really do it. So at some point I'll be making a Substack, and I have an idea to put it up, make a lot of articles free, and then the paid articles I'm thinking of making the member articles something like more how do I say it, the takes I have that I think I want the least popular on the internet, the ones that I know that I'm gonna need a group of people who are understanding and have a little bit more thinky about for me to talk about. I've been working on this AI article for a little while now. A lot of people know that I have a set of AI beliefs that are kind of outside of the online left mainstream that I've been wanting to articulate for a while, but I have been hesitant to, just because people are being so reactionary about the topic that I have kind of held off instead of actually getting into it. But I will. at some point I do want to talk about it. I do want to articulate it, and hopefully that'll be like an example of a paid article. But writing might be like a way for me to make content that actually will, like, you know, perform, or that I can make content on a timeline that I can actually keep up with. Between, you know, these step back videos, which are, you know, ever since I had to quit doing step back full time, I've been really like obsessed with wanting to make step back videos and keep trying to make them, but just like the time and energy that I have, the time and energy that I actually have, like, to give to it is so limited, and so I spend almost all of my time feeling like really guilty and really like frustrated that there's just like not enough, that I just do not have the fucking hours, and I do not have the energy to just go to work, come home, childcare, then, you know, put kid to sleep, and then in that, like, you know, 2 hours that I get, that is like my only free time of the day, to spend it then, you know, reading, researching, writing, that kind of stuff. So especially because a good amount of that time is now taken up with like this freelance video editing and all this other stuff. So yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, I got another video that I also did a whole bunch of stuff on that I'm pretty into doing. Gosh. But I do have some step back videos that I want to make. I want to make a video on... These are the ones I'm just sitting on as possible video ideas in the future. I want to make a video on fluoride. I want to make a video on French, specifically about Africa and the French language and the sort of future of humanity, and how French is going to be one of the more prominent languages in the future, and that we need to really think more about the French language and the African continent in a lot of ways, because that's going to be like, it's going to be where all of the major stuff in the future is going to play out. Yeah, I also have a video about why I don't like strategic voting. Video about North Korea. Yeah, you know, I have stuff that I keep doing, so I do keep trying. I'm also, hopefully, I'm not, you know, no guarantees, but I have a job interview coming up in about 2 weeks that I'm also, like, if I get it, hopefully my life will be a little bit more sane, because I won't have to do things like work on a Saturday morning or have random meetings that are like, you know, from 5 to 7 p.m. and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that, you know, that it'll change things up a little bit. Anyways, that's kind of the state of the projects. I have some other things that I've been wanting to play with. Like, you know, I've been trying to draft out the idea of making a little like role-playing game about the apocalypse, and, you know, a couple other things, but that's not important. All right, let's take a look at how chat's looking for when it comes to W's. Meat and Math ran a slow, casual 5K every single day in May. Holy moly. I was able to work from home, so I was getting up at roughly 5 a.m. to jog as the sun came up. That is really cool. I walked a 5K a few weeks ago. That was fun. And yeah, but yeah, being able to run it is pretty intense. And also just, man, jealous of the freedom you have there. Tarbo has started a 2-month paid leave from your job for mental health. That's awesome. Taking care of yourself, and the fact that you have a job that is willing to give that to you is pretty good. Have I read any of Jason Colavito's work? I think he has the perfect guest for your podcast. That name I do not recognize that name, so obviously not. Jason Colavito. I know that people ask me to do to have mini Minuteman on the show a lot. Is that who this is? No, it's not. Okay. Interesting. Fun dino fact. One of the silliest names for a dinosaur was given to a sauropod named... Yeah. Whoa. Come on. All right. Gallimiopus, which means needs helmet because the fragile condition of the type specimen's brain case. Interesting. I find that my takes on AI ally with Alex Avila's. I do love that, like, the AI, like, takeosphere is extremely funny because it's like, if you go on, like, twitter.com or Blue Sky, or, like, browse around TikTok, you find, like, people who are, like, absolutely, like, this is the worst thing to has ever happened. We will personally crucify and flay alive anyone caught using the evil degenerative AI. And then you, like, go to, like, somewhere in the real world where humans live, and like, your boss is like, you should be using AI to do those do those meeting minutes, man. You're wasting a bunch of time. So I don't know. Am I still medicated? Yes. Yeah, I'm still taking the Vivance to kind of keep the brain going. Struggle is real, brother. Yeah. Good luck with the job interview. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited because it seems that I've somehow stumbled into a career in communications, and this job is at an actual communications company, which means that, like, instead of me being a person with absolutely no knowledge of communications who has been dropped into an organization that only has space for one communications person, so I have to kind of just be the department for a job that I have no clue how to do. I would be working with people who actually know what they're doing and hopefully learn how to do this career that apparently I'm stuck doing. So that's fun. Fluoride French. Tristan, I'm an American. You have made me afraid for poorly understood reasons. Yeah, well, the thing is, like, I want to talk, like, the thing I want to talk about with fluoride is, like, how fluoride, like, the reason why people are against fluoride or water fluoridation or however you want to call it is because it's a government service. And, like, conspiracy theories are fundamentally born of a mistrust or a dislike of government service, and it feeds into right-wing narratives because the right always want to get rid of government services, and one of the ways that they have been able to effectively do that is by essentially just, encouraging conspiracy theories that make people have a growing mistrust of the government. But fluoride is one of the most amazing cases of, like, the government can do things. The government can successfully, make changes to your life that can improve things. Water fluoridation is, like, one of the great examples of that, because it's such an easy fix, and it does so much to help with oral health, and also just, like, how much people don't realize how, like, it's also fits into the whole idea in a way that maybe, like, vaccines might be too polarizing about, where, like, we take it for granted because it's, like, it's been a thing that we know we've had for our entire lives, and we don't realize just how bad, like, we don't realize how bad a world without vaccines is, and that has led to us, like, starting to think that vaccines are bad, and then leading to measles outbreaks and kids dying and all sorts of stuff. But the other thing is, like for example, the example that I'd probably use in the video is that my mom grew up in a rural farm like basically in the middle of nowhere. Literally, like, until she was 5, she lived in a log cabin, like very like rural Saskatchewan, and grew up on well water. And because she grew up on well water, her entire adult life has been marked with dental issues. Her brother, I mean, he passed away a few years ago, but her younger brother, in his like late 40s, had dentures, because he didn't have any teeth because of the fluoride situation. There was no fluoride in his water, and like. Yeah, like my mom was always in and out of the dentist with like root canals and fillings and all those kinds of things, because her teeth were really chalky. And like, people don't realize like how big a deal fluoridated water is, because we've really never known the world without it. And the French thing is just the fact that like, there's a couple things I want to talk about with that, which is one, language barriers are real, and there are entire worlds. Like, this world has multiple worlds in it, and we are just completely checked out because of language barriers. And like, I know we live in Canada, or I live in Canada. Most of my audience lives in the U.S. Most of which primarily speak English. And so the Anglosphere is like the world we know. Like, we are more intimately familiar with politics of places like the UK and Australia and New Zealand and the United States, because those are English-speaking countries. And the places like South Africa is a country that we're well aware of because it used to be a British colony. Same with Israel. And so like, that is like the geopolitics that we like acknowledge and that we think is like, what we are familiar with. But the thing is that, and this is the thing that we've, not experienced in many a generation. Probably like, this is the first time this has happened probably since like the 18th century. But we're going to be moving to a world where English isn't sort of the language of the most powerful empires. Which means that like, in the decades to come, like Mandarin Chinese, like we don't, like, we get so little like really straight and solid information about what's going on in China. And one of the main reasons is because, people by and large don't know Mandarin. And those, even though who do, like, they might know it at a sort of low proficiency, so they can't like keep up with like the news in Mandarin and stuff like that. And so you're locked out of like, China, which is probably going to be like, all things considered, is already like the world global superpower. And yet, they have a space station. I have no idea what happens on it. They have, they just built like a huge nuclear power plant. And I didn't know anything about it, and I don't know any details even now. And one of the things that I am kind of clued into, because I do have some French proficiency, is like French, like the Francophone world is its own world. And that, like, if you live in like France, you actually have a pretty good knowledge of like, well, like, not to the extent of like, like a lot of things, but like, in the French-speaking world has its own sort of culture and politics and stuff, and we do not really like get to know a whole lot about those countries and those cultures. And this is, the so what is that if you look at the population growth trends of most countries in the sort of next like 50, 60 years, pretty much every country on Earth is slowing down its population growth. And we're probably going to be in a space where most countries have negative population growth by 2100. To the point where, like, we're at 8 billion right now in 2025, and most demographers have kind of come to the consensus that 9 billion, somewhere in 9 billion, is probably going to be the peak of the human population before it starts going down. Now, that being said, there are a few countries where population growth is still high and is expected to grow over the next few centuries. Mostly because we know of a pretty standard process of, like, where a country starts off as a primarily rural, agricultural, underdeveloped country, and then goes through a period of industrialization and, like, massive increases in, like, standards of living and social services and all those kinds of things. And that leads to a cycle that people see of, like, large population growth. And then as you sort of settle into an industrialized society over the decades, as children become more of a liability than an asset, it starts to level out. And also as, like, women's rights, and when this happens, women's rights tend to increase and things tend to get better for women. And there's more choice over reproduction. And the population starts to even out. And then it starts to go down. But, many of the countries that are going to go through that big population boom that comes with, like, development and stuff like that are French-speaking countries. The countries that are expected to go through that in the next few decades are countries like Mali, Congo, Sierra Leone, and Cote d'Ivoire, and like all these countries are in Africa, and they're all going to go through this process. And the sort of language of business there and the sort of language of international communications in there is all French. And so I thought that it would be good for people to, for a video, understand what's going on in sort of the Francosphere and also what we're going to expect in the future. Like, one of the things that I always think is really cool is that French is going to become one of the most widely spoken languages on Earth. It's possible, given that sort of demographic transition that's happening, that that French will become a more widely spoken language. Like, there'll be more people in the world who speak French than English by the end of the century. Possibly. If everything goes according to predictions. Which is quite wild, because English domination of the world because the last two global empires have been English-speaking countries, has been pretty dominant since basically, like, the 1800s. Or sorry, not the 1800s, the 1700s, actually. And so this is a huge change for, like, the world. And I don't know. I think that means that for the future, we probably should be more aware of what's going on in countries like Congo, in countries like Cote d'Ivoire, in countries like Mali, and also know what the sort of politics and dynamics are of those, because the Anglosphere is fairly uninformed. And I don't know, maybe I can also push that people should probably learn a new language, because whether it's Mandarin or French, these are languages that people should that will be, like, the more dominant languages on Earth, and that if you want to be successful, if you want to be a well-informed person, they're important to know. And it's probably one of the reasons why Canada is making a really big push for more Francophone immigration. So, let's see. Big Brother help improve dental health must be a conspiracy. Yeah, exactly. It's a big trend of these days of people wanting to tear down the fences without checking what they're built. Man, there you go. That's actually a very good. That's a very good quote. I feel like I want to steal that, but I like that. That there's a big. Yeah, people who want to tear down fences but don't understand why they were built in the first place. Good call. Does the video about French discuss the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis that language points to cognition? Maybe. I don't know if I want to get too deep into like the language itself. The only thing about like about the mechanics of language that I do want to talk about in that video is that unlike English, French does have rules. Like I know that English has rules, but French has a like governing body. There is something called the Académie Française in France that sort of dictates the rules of what proper French is to look like. And the thing about it is that it the Académie Française is compared to a lot of other languages that have similar types of institutions, is actually rather conservative. French has been very hesitant to add new words, which means that the French vocabulary is actually quite small, especially compared to English, where I think that French has about a vocabulary of about 125,000 words, while English it's like north of 500,000. But French also has some arcane grammatical rules and has a number system that is absolutely fucking crazy, that are very overdue for modernization. But the Académie Française has been, against doing that. So that you can say that, Jay-Z has 420 and 19 problems, but a bitch ain't one, as an example. And if you know French, that's a funny joke. But what's going to happen too in the decades to come is that the population of French speakers outside of France is going to become so much more numerous, which, there are already way more people who speak French who live outside of France than who live in France. But the sort of like relevance, like French is becoming a more powerful language, but France isn't becoming a more powerful country. And so what we're seeing, and there's actually like some work to do this, is that there's a sort of like the African countries that are using French to collaborate and talk to each other are kind of developing their own rules for the language. And as time moves on, they'll become more of the de facto way that French is spoken rather than the proper Académie Française style. And so the language is going to go through a major shift, which is important to do because French has a lot of weird problems. Like because of that arcane rule that arcane set of standards, because of the Académie Française, its grammar is very complicated, and it means that, and anybody who studies French can tell you, that there's a large and widening currently gap between how French is written versus how it's spoken. And it's very, very easy to become to be able to read and write in French but not be able to speak it, and being able to speak French but not being able to read and write. And the thing is that a lot of these changes, this sort of African dialect of French, could nudge the language in a lot of directions to make it a more functional, useful language, and kind of loosen France's grip over it. And there's sort of an interesting, French is the language these countries speak because of because of France's colonization, and in taking the language back for themselves, are almost like taking it away from France. And I think there's something kind of interesting and cool in that. And so I think there's something to talk about there that I think will be really interesting. But that's sort of a direction that I want to go. And yeah, and then just like the French-speaking world is going to be more like, maybe I only ever done one video on it, but like one of the things that I kind of every so often want to do is just drop everything and dedicate my life to helping out Congo. I have a sort of place in my heart, specifically for the DRC that not a lot of other countries have, and I'm like, I'm as I'm learning more French and getting better at it, that's one of the things that I want to like look into. So yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Hey Tristan, this is my first live stream. Just want to say I love your content and hope to catch your live. Sending all the best to you from Carry on Top. Well, that's nice to say. Thank you. You have this. If that is your actual name, that's my dad's name. My dad's name is Carry with a K. So, I already like you because of that. So take that however you want. Tristan's hot take of babies exist is a little too much for me to get behind, but I'm open to evidence. Yeah, babies do. What's it called? Just today we were hanging out with a couple of our friends who just had a kid like 2 weeks ago, and they had their like little 2-week-old son, and he was just like a little tiny baby, and it's like, oh my god, yeah, babies exist. But yeah, obviously, like, you know, there's an overall the overall demography of the world as we are changing from, you know, the long durée change from a you know, industrial to post-industrial world, or whatever you want to call it, or, you know, just the underdeveloped parts of the world because of colonization finally having their own time to go through these transitions, does mean that, yeah, like a lot of the world, the population growth is slowing down. This is why everybody who like bitches about overpopulation I made a whole video about why I think overpopulation is a racist myth, but they don't have anything to worry about. 9 billion is like the highest that it's going to go, and then it's going to start going down. We'll probably have fewer people in 2200 than we have now. Because, yeah, like the amount of babies per person is going down, and obviously, like, it's never going to get to zero. But you know, like, a certain rate of child having is going to result in it's going to stabilize at a certain point. And I don't know exactly what it's going to stabilize at, but it's a big problem for economies that are based on constant economic growth. But, you know, if you don't have an economy based on constant economic growth, I mean, if we had an economy based on constant economic growth, we're not going to survive the 2200 anyway. But if we do, you know, either like buy into degrowth or, you know, like, you know, increasing automation and all sorts of stuff in order to live more sustainably, then like our population, the global population going down and balancing at some much lower number is not going to be as painful as we think. And the Malthusian argument that we're going to overrun the world's carrying capacity is not a thing. We're nowhere close to the sort of amount of people that the planet can hold. And the issue of the world is not the vast majority of the human population consumes a tiny amount of resources. The issue isn't that there are too many people. The issue is that there are too many people who live lifestyles like, you know, like ours in the West. Because, you know, my lifestyle uses the resources of, like, you know, thousands of people in the global South. And that is the problem, not the fact that there are thousands of people in the global South. Yeah, so that's that. Industrialization has a tendency to extend life expectancy as fertility rates decline. Yeah, so we're also going to be living longer, and so our population is going to skew older and with fewer people. So, like, the future that we're all going to face is the kind of demographic problems that Japan has, Korea has. The only difference is that those countries are suffering because they have low immigration. The rest of the world, if one of the smart things that they can do with it to fight an aging population is to open up immigration and also to encourage immigration from the countries where there is still population growth happening. And right now that's mostly the Middle East and sub-Saharan Africa. And so, and the Middle East, it's starting to slow down. So specifically like the big diaspora, like, you know how like in our world today where we've like lived through, you know, the Indian diaspora, so there are Indian communities all over the world. There's Chinese communities all over the world because of immigration. The next big one we're going to have is like Congolese, Nigerian, Ivory Coast, Niger. Niger is another country that is going to have a big population growth. All of these countries are going to go through the population boom, and then we're going to also going to have them. Like a lot more people who immigrate to places around the world are going to be African rather than from other places. In case you wanted to know what the future is going to be like, and a lot of them are going to have French as their first language. I would assume Mandarin, Hindi, or Spanish would overtake French. Potentially. I never said that they would. I never said that French was going to overshadow Mandarin. I think that French is going to overshadow English. I think that as we're seeing the United States go into decline, and that the sort of hegemony of North American and European power starts to wane, that because today, if you were to ask what the most popular language was on Earth, it's actually bad English. Lots of people speak bad English. But a lot of people won't be as pressured to learn English in school, in countries where English isn't the main language, when, there are options like Mandarin, like French, that kind of thing. And so French, I think, will just become a larger language than English. I don't think it's going to be the most spoken language on Earth. And even then, I think that's a guess, and I don't know if it's going to overtake it. And Spanish could also work, but the thing is that Spanish-speaking countries are also seeing population decline and stagnation. So Latin America had its sort of population peak several decades ago, and it is also now hitting the point where it's going to start slowing down and going they're going to start getting into a place where they're not even above replacement. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. Oh, great, we're all going to have to watch Jerry Lewis movies, so when we meet somebody from our new lingua franca's homeland, we'll be able to talk to them about something that they're interested in. Hey, there's upsides, too. You don't have to deal with Jerry Lewis. We'll have to deal with Jerry Lewis, but we can also deal with, actually, right before the stream started, I was watching the movie Mars Express. And I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but it fucking rules. And I have been hovering around the Bande Dessinée. I don't know if anyone... Bande Dessinée, that's it. Which is the kind of French word for comics. About 10 years ago, people were like, oh, French comics are going to overtake French comics hitting the comic book scene is going to be like when manga hit the West, right? It's gonna be this huge thing. It didn't end up being as big a thing, but French animation and French comic books are a really well-established thing with their own sort of style, and there's a lot of interesting stuff. And one of the things that's really cool that comes out of that scene is that France has a fairly strong arts funding scene, and so there's a lot of French movies and film and art. I guess there's a lot of French cinema, animation, comic books, literature, all that kind of stuff that is made more through incubator funds and government programs and things Cannes, the festival has they have their own sort of thing that funds small indie projects. And so France's arts scene, media scene, has a lot more of like, people making cool things that are like kind of, they don't have to hit a marketable demographic. They're kind of more interesting experimental stabs in the dark, and they don't necessarily rely on like, trying to make a fuckload of money as fast as possible. And so when I'm seeing I just, like I said, I just ended up watching the movie Mars Express, which is really cool. And it reminds me a lot of the sort of vibe that I used to and really enjoy in anime, but has kind of gone away in recent decades. Like, I really I'm not like a, huge, like, I'm not a giant anime fan overall. There's nothing specific about anime that I enjoy, but there is like, there is anime stuff that I enjoy, but I'm not like a person who like will like something just because it is anime, if that makes sense. Like, I approach anime films and shows in the same way I approach any other show. And I have found that I really enjoy, like, of the anime that I do enjoy, it's much older stuff, like things like the movie Akira, and like Ghost in the Shell, and like Patlabor, and like even like sort of 90s Gundam shows and stuff like that. I enjoy that kind of stuff more than like modern day stuff. And I felt like, watching Mars Express, but also some of the other sort of French animation stuff that I've been watching, it feels more like kind of like that kind of like late 80s, early 90s anime feel than like, the anime feels like today. So if you're interested in trying something out and you don't mind watching movies with subtitles, Mars Express, pretty cool. Too late for W's? No, Matt, you can give me W's anytime you want. Feel free to steal the fence thing if you want to. Just take a comment saying after all. Okay. Not gonna lie, I don't like having a literal hierarchical body defining a major language. Yeah, that's true. Although, like, French is especially conservative, but like German has one, and German actually, like, the German like sort of academy that manages the German language is actually fairly they're fairly modern, and they allow for, like, they typically change their language to make things easier and more accessible, like and that kind of stuff. And like and also like an example, like I always think about, like, how Mandarin, like one of the biggest things in Mandarin that has changed everything there is Pinyin. And Pinyin is like, I wouldn't be surprised if Pinyin became almost like a, like, I could imagine that if we live in like a world where China spends a good amount of time being like the hegemonic power that rules, is like the most powerful country on earth, that a lot of the world that, spent a lot of time under Anglo hegemony, that Mandarin in Pinyin is going to be a fairly common like form of communication. For those who don't know, Pinyin is basically a way of writing Mandarin that is done with accented Latin characters rather than like the sort of simplified Chinese character system. It was originally designed so that Chinese people could write easier, like on their phones and stuff. Like if you ever like a Chinese person on their phone, they'll usually have like a sort of like a keyboard just like mine, and then they will write in the pinyin of the thing that they want to say, and it will convert that pinyin into the symbols that they then read. It's an interesting thing. One wonders how this will affect Creole speakers. Yeah. I mean, English has Pidgin, which is a similar concept. So, kind of like how Mexican Spanish is the default even above Spain Spanish. The Real Academia de Lengua Española is much more lean about new words, though. Yeah. Yeah, the French version is just particularly conservative about these things. Last month, my sister went on vacation. I got to the apartment all to myself for almost a whole month. Nice. Popping in to send some love. Always happy to see you streaming, Tristan. Thank you, Daunt Rump 901. That's awesome. I don't think I have the freedom of space. Yep. I remembered there was a time when I lived in Quebec that I had an apartment in Quebec where I had 3 roommates. So rent was extraordinarily cheap. I think I ended up paying like $150 in rent or something crazy like that. Because this was also like over 10 years ago, and it was Sherbrooke, so it was not an expensive town, and we were in the like cheapest part of Sherbrooke. So our rent was really low, and I had 3 roommates, but all of them had not stayed for the summer, but we had to pay because of how Quebec works. In Quebec, you pay your lease, and the lease goes from July to July, or the July to the end of June. And so we had it for the summer, and so we were between 2 school years, and we had to lease the place starting in July if we wanted to stay there for the school year that was going to be like September until April that following year. I decided to just move to Quebec early and focus on. At that point, I was working on writing my GREs. So I was just going to move there and focus on studying over the summer, because I was like, hey, this is an apartment I'm paying for anyway, so I might as well like live there. Anyways, when I had all my roommates were out, like they didn't live there, so I had the entire apartment to myself, and that was pretty cool. I like that a lot. And so like I remember I did things like. The number one, like, most degenerate thing that I did because of that situation was that the washing machine became my laundry hamper. So I would just, like, throw my dirty clothes in the washing machine when I was done wearing them, because then when it was full, I could just turn it on. And also because I was, a 22-year-old or whatever, I probably used my dryer as my dresser. You and your comrades got to march in the May Day parade in Ottawa, and even got to speak with someone unionizing at one of the local animation studios. That's pretty cool. That's very cool. Let's see. I got scrolled down. Got to see Sinners, which is a W of a movie. Can't remember which one that is. I was going to go to the movies the other day, except that the time didn't work out, but I was kind of intrigued by the movie Bring Her Back. It seems like it's apparently a pretty good movie. But I haven't been to the movies in ages. The last movie I saw in theaters was Deadpool, I think. Yeah. To show you how often I go to the movies, the last movie I saw in theaters was Deadpool 3. Then the last movie I saw before that was Elemental. And then the last movie I saw before that, I think, was like... What was that? What was that? What was that? What was that movie called? The Legend of the Ten Rings. What is The Legend of the Ten Rings? Shang-Chi. Oh no, I think at some point I also ended up seeing, this is the thing, typically I only go to the movies when I'm like, what else are we gonna do? I guess, let's see if a movie's playing, and then I don't know anything that's playing because I haven't watched any trailers, so I'm like, I guess we'll go see the Marvel that is in there. The only like actual movie that I like in recent days that I like sought out to go see in theaters was Deadpool, um, just because like I thought it was going to be good, and it was. So I enjoyed that, but I'm not much of a movie guy, as a lot of you know. But I did want to see Bring Her Back. It looked really good. Yeah. Anyways. And I've heard that the 28 years later might actually be good too when it comes out. Do I have thoughts on Mars colonization? Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon. Will humans go to Mars? Possibly. I mean, in like the eternal length of time, sure. I wouldn't be too surprised if we kind of kept the estimation that's been around for most of my life, which is that probably sometime in the 2030s someone's going to go to Mars. If I were to hazard a guess, it's probably going to be the Chinese, just because America is kind of going through the process right now of dismantling the entire country's infrastructure, and put all of its bets in a rocket company that like the latest like SpaceX's made like one good rocket, and then their next project, this new Starship project, doesn't really seem like it's designed to turn into a functioning rocket. It seems like it's designed to just milk the government for as much money as possible. So like, I don't know. Like, it seems like the NASA attempt to go to space again is probably not gonna happen anytime. Like, it's probably not gonna go anywhere anytime soon. My guess is that next year's moon mission is pretty much dead in the water at this point. And so I think all of our hopes are like, I think 2032 the Chinese plan on putting a person on the moon and building a base in the sort of mid 2030s, and then I think that like maybe we'll see something by like the late 2030s of somebody going to Mars. As far as colonization goes, Mars has a lot working against that and not a lot working for it. Mars has toxic soil, no atmosphere, heavy radiation, and then on top of that doesn't really have a whole lot of reason for people to go there. Like, Mars as a place for people to, like, as like a science thing, like, well, I think that like maybe optimistically there'll be like a little science, like kind of like what we have with Antarctica. Most optimistic, I think that something like that on Mars is possible, probably even likely. But like colonization, I doubt, just because like there's no reason to. There's not really a lot on Mars that we want. I would argue that if there's anything that Mars is going to like actually be like, if the only thing that would be close to Mars colonization would be building something in orbit, because what we actually would want resource-wise is the asteroid belt that is after Mars, and having a sort of refueling station on Mars would be good for that. But like actually like going down the Martian gravity well, we don't really have a whole lot that we actually want or need that is from the Martian surface like that we can't get way more of, and just the asteroid belt is a little bit further on. Hopefully that was enough to the Mars thing. You're going to volunteer / help to recognize my org at an anarchist book fair that PM Press will even be at. Very nice. Poverty exists because we can't, not because we can't feed the poor, but because we can't satisfy the rich. Very true. Yeah, the whole shit with like with Palantir and US is kind of creepy right now. don't exactly know where that's going at the moment. The United States is missing a big opportunity with not helping Africa. That is going to be the next booming economy, and the Chinese are taking big advantage of it, which is a good thing. Yeah. Yeah, the U.S. has not invested in like its future by making relationships with these countries, but China has. And like, you might have seen that like there was a bunch of countries that had like these sort of coups happen in sub-Saharan Africa in the last couple of years, and a lot of them were throwing out leaders that were basically more cozied up with like France, and moving towards ones that are more cozied up with like Russia/China, and you're gonna like that's gonna be more of like the thing that we're gonna see in the future. I loved your videos about the white power movement. Do you plan to do any more? I mean, I've wanted to, and then it kind of got stalled. What happened was that the last video I made in that series did very poorly, and that sort of killed the momentum for me. And then I also tried, and I did a few even interviews to that extent, to try and do research into making the next one, which would have been about the white power movement during the War on Terror and the Bush years, before going into the Obama years. But the thing is that actually, like, after the Oklahoma City bombing, there was a big decrease in like membership and like activity in the white power movement that really kind of went dormant until Obama. And so like it's kind of like I kind of ran into like a difficult story to tell about what to do after Oklahoma City, and then picking up we're kind of going then onto the thread that leads to the white power movement as it is today, where it's like a very different beast. And so I mean, if I can find a good angle, if I could if I it's not a thing that I'm officially going to write off, but at the moment I don't have any plans to push a new part of it quite yet, unless something like really good comes up, or like a really good idea comes up. Your tabletop friends bought you an Xbox Series X. You can play Marvel Rivals with them as a late birthday gift. That's really nice of them. Holy crap. On the subject of immigration, hot take, Canada needs to pull out a safe third country agreement yesterday. Yeah, definitely for the U.S. Most African countries speak French. Yeah, at least maybe not so much by population, but by like the amount of countries, definitely. Nigeria doesn't really speak French, and Nigeria is like right now, like it's like what, the second or third most populous country on Earth? No, not second. It's like the third or fourth most populous country on Earth. It's very close to the United States in population, but I can't remember if it has grown bigger than the U.S. yet. And that kind of skews the numbers a little bit, because Nigeria is an extremely populous country. Nigeria is like going to be like probably going to be like the most powerful country on the African continent, if it isn't already. I feel like French music is becoming more popular in the Anglosphere. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you want an example of the sort of bande dessinée and like how big it's gotten, like freaking a bunch of the studios that worked on Arcane were all French, like French studios. Arcane, the Netflix show, had a really good showing of like French animation and French animation styles. And yeah, as someone pointed out, like French music is already becoming much more popular. That is true. French music is really good. France really invests in its artists, so there's a lot of really good French like music, movies, TV shows, that kind of stuff. If you're like, if you have the language to appreciate it. But music kind of transcends language, and there's a lot of really good stuff there. So yeah, if you ever want to listen to some good French music or good music, like I remembered some of the first ones. I'll give a few examples. There's a really good band named Section d'Assaut. They have a band called Mad Direction that's really good. They have a song called Problème d'adult. Problème d'adult? Yeah, something like that. There's also Danse. I'm just gonna put a list here of like what I got right away. Like Je te laisserai le démon, Les Étoiles, La Vie en Rose. That's a really old one though. Yeah, there's a lot of really good French music, and it's becoming more. I think one of those. Oh yeah, like in Arcane, one of the biggest songs from Arcane is "Ma meilleure ennemie." It seemed like half the shows I watched on Teletoon growing up were French co-productions with a Canadian studio. Yep. Well, Canada's a bit different. We have a bit more of a connection with French stuff. 21st century, start learning Mandarin Chinese, buddy. Yep. Have I ever seen Fantastic Planet? I saw it last year. It's on my list of things to watch. I assumed it was like Pigeon or Krill for Chinese. No. Pinyin is definitely, it was Chinese, was like sort of a way for Chinese to adapt to cell phones. Specifically like T9 texting and stuff like that. Yeah, let's see. What political persuasion do I consider myself these days? It's a very good question. I'm a little bit so I'm a little, in some ways I'm a little bit in the woods. I still have, I still have a pretty firm like anarchist streak to me, to the point where like, let me see if I can show you. Like, I still have a lot of affinity for anarchists and anarchism. I would say is that I still stick with it, but I would say that my as far as emphasis goes, my emphasis is definitely leaning more on the red than the black these days, if that makes sense. Like, I still consider myself, like, in an ideal world, I'd be an anarchist. And I think that an anarchist society ultimately will be the most, like, stable next evolution for, like, the fundamental process of human organization. But, lately I have been reading a lot more of, like, Marxist theory, and, I'm just, like, I'm in the anarcho-communism, I'm finding myself more stuck into the communism part than the anarchism part for now. Mostly, as we're entering into a world where Chinese communism is going to be like the sort of growing default left-wing ideology at some point. Not in the West, but in most of the world, like sort of Chinese-style communism is going to become more of a thing. Then, like, I fundamentally think that that's a better economic system than the one that we have in the West. The capitalist one we have in the West. But I do obviously not enjoy that, like, that is a system that also has a fairly low respect for human rights, and I think that I just can't shake, like, my culture's emphasis on wanting freedom and autonomy and all sorts of stuff. Not that I'd say that those are, like, universal things across all cultures, but I do think that I think that there, if like we live in like sort of, I just long for the days, I guess. I long for the day when like the difference between anarchists and Marxist, Leninist, Maoists, or whatever it is you want to call yourself, whenever like that distinction actually has any real point to it whatsoever. Man, long for those days. At the moment, I don't really see much point in like us fighting over the best way for us to get to the in a more the most ideal situation down the line, when at the moment we're still fighting like capitalism at its core, which we're not really going to have. We're not going to be able to have anarchism without getting rid of capitalism first. And at the moment, like most of my like political energy is getting very frustrated with liberals, getting very frustrated with like neoliberalism, and like just like the sort of like the like we're getting kind of like distracted in like the sort of way that politics is going right now, because it is like the people and stuff in power. But like I think that like Trump coming into power and sort of the very close call we had with Pierre Poilievre here is that like I think that neoliberalism and the sort of like the sort of like Davos World Economic Forum system is collapsing. It's falling apart. And what it gets replaced with is, if the choices are going to be, following the West into race-centered fascism, or following China into a authoritarian, communism, I'll take the authoritarian communism over the fascism any day of the week. So amongst the choices there, but when it comes to like what is like the ideal way for humanity to be organized? I mean, I would say that like we probably need to do away with the concept of states, because states seem to cause more problems than we solve. And I feel like we should have learned during World War One with monarchies. Like during World War One, we learned that the monarchy state gives too much power to just a few people who are not trained for the job. And I think we're entering into that state where like states today, with like Donald Trump and stuff like that, are showing that like giving any like sort of organized body this much power over others is a dangerous prospect and is ultimately self-defeating. And I hope that that could be a thing that we can actually like address at some point in the future. But we're I feel like we're collectively as a planet very far away from that conversation, and I don't want to waste my energy too much. Took your kids to see the Minecraft movie, and it was a fucking experience. That was the most recent movie I see, and I wish I hadn't. Yeah. Mars colonization is a Musk pipe dream, not worth discussing until we learn how to do cold fusion. Yeah, cold fusion's not a thing that's going to happen, but hot fusion looks like it's going to happen. I did see that there was a company that was making like a fusion that was working on a fusion powered engine that could get the trip to Mars reduced to like weeks instead of months, which could very much change the math on all these things. I don't understand wanting to colonize anywhere in space. If we had the technology to do so, we should have the technology for Earth to be fine. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, on a long time scale, we'll probably end up we can tell through like anytime we do technological advancement that we have a larger need for energy. And there's some stuff, there's some like natural resources in space that that our future will kind of depend on. Like the minerals, there's a lot of minerals that are very abundant in the asteroid belt that are very rare on Earth's surface and much easier to get. So like it would be worth it to do that. And also like we're going to get to some point where like the amount of excess heat made by a lot of industries in our current world is going to be enough to actually, you know, cause a heat problem on Earth. And so at some point in our future, if we're going to keep developing technologies, we're probably going to need to transfer some of the things that we do, like our industries, into space, which is going to require, you know, all sorts of stuff. So I'm not like I don't think that like, you know, writing off doing stuff in space is a thing I'm too. I think there is some value to it. Don't go to Mars, feed the poor instead. I would honestly argue that you can do both. Like, I would say that like things like the things that we're going to do, like example, if we were to make a sort of scientific outpost on Mars, the things that we would discover technologically that we would develop in order to help, in order to make a like, you know, self-sustaining presence on that planet happen. The discoveries could, you know, change the way that we do things here. Like I think that those kinds of engineering problems do pay dividends back home. Question: Are you aware of the current protests going on in LA right now against the ICE agents? Is positive change finally happening? I am aware of it. I don't know any details. I just know that it is a thing that is happening. Again, I haven't really been at my computer in the last 2 days, so I don't really know too much about what's going on. Like I haven't had time to really keep up on the news today. So I don't know the details of what's going on, I'll be honest. Because, you know, everything is unfolding so fast. But I hope it's... But, I mean, from what little I've heard, it seems optimistic. That's good. I don't know exactly... Because I also know that the U.S. has been having massive protests all the time, and it doesn't seem to do anything. So I don't know if this is, like, different from all of those, like, you know... I'm trying to remember what that movement was called, but there was some kind of like thing that was going on when Trump got into office that was like where they're having like massive protests around the country every weekend. It didn't really seem to do anything. I have no idea. Besides being hyper-capitalist, the USA is far too Christian to be considered genuinely civil. Oh my goodness. You loathed Arcane. The propaganda is atrocious. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's no real walking your way out of that one. But also, it's very pretty. The characters are very interesting. It's honestly, like... I liked Arcane, if anything, just for... Like, I barely understood what the story of it was. It was just such like a... like, the animation was so good. The music was so good. And some of, like, the, you know, animation stuff done was just so, like... captivating that I almost watched the show on that alone, honestly. How will Quebec benefit from a growing diaspora? Will immigration spread outside of just Montreal? I think so. So RD, one of the... Just last week, the new government outlined its immigration priorities, and I do actually like work in Canadian immigration, and one of like the big pushes that Canada is trying to do right now is in francophone immigration outside of Quebec. Like, if you are a francophone who wants to move to Canada and wants to live somewhere that's outside of Quebec, it's actually very easy, or at least it's not. It's a lot. Your pathway gets a lot easier. Like, there's a whole initiative to create francophone-friendly cities outside of Quebec, and to like a lot of cities are being put under more pressure to have a more friendly French, like have a more friendly francophone services, and like have more like have French just be better represented. So yeah, I expect that you'll see in the coming years that more Canada is going to be getting more French over time. Like we have more French, like already. The government's starting to put more emphasis on French as a language that is in more places, and I'm hoping that if that trend continues, that we're going to see like more like I live in London. London already has several French schools, and I imagine we're going to see more, and that a whole French school system that is that right now is very small outside of where we live, but like I think it'll go places. I think there is something. Let's see. Way too many Canadians either think the Liberals are the left-wing party or that they won't do any neoliberal thing. Yeah. That's why I think that's a problem. Like, I think, like in Canada, the political enemy that needs to be actually, like, focused on for our efforts to defeat is the Liberal Party. Without getting rid of the Liberal Party, there's no chance for the left to make any progress whatsoever in changing Canada for the better. Same with the U.S. I think that, like, you can point to a lot of Trump's victory as a failure of the Democratic Party, and that if the left is going to have any success in America, and that things are going to be made any better, the number one enemy that needs to be defeated is the fucking is the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is an absolute is what is standing in the way of success, and by doing so, by actively trying to push back against the left, they are essentially handing the country to the right. And I do think that if we made the effort known that, like, in the U.S. the Democratic Party is the main enemy that we should be fighting, then if they can be defeated, then defeating the Republicans would be child's play, because the main reason why the Republicans keep winning is because the Democratic offer is nothing. The Democratic Party's like only ideology seems to be elitism, and people fucking hate it. It was only uploaded by bowling down to the winds of the NGOs. Libertarian once asked me why we wouldn't find the prospect of having my own personal lava tube on Mars thrilling. I unfriended total waste of time. I mean, the thing is that the moon does have a purpose. Like, people living on the moon is definitely a thing that could happen, because if we are going to have like space-based industry, which we could do, and would make some industries would actually be a lot easier in space. And if we're going to, to feed our economic engine, if we're going to start mining asteroids or comets, or like, sending ships to the asteroid belt or whatever, the moon is a natural place to do that. Plus, if fusion power becomes a thing, which, signs are pointing to that we're like closer than people think. That the moon has access to helium-3, which is it's a substance that nuclear reactors produce. Like, the entire world produces less than a kilogram a year, and we need it's a required substance in the process of the way that we do fusion right now. And so the moon could very well be a place that we go to get fuel. And it has a lower gravity well than the Earth, and so it's a good place to like set things up for people who then want to go off to other places. So, and it only takes like a couple days to get there. The good parts of why I hate it so much, I think it's a dangerous piece of media. It's like how I can't overlook the harmful tropes in anime in order to enjoy it. Alright. I feel like Season 2 of Arcane doesn't look so great on the cops. And if anything, like, the cops are, like, kind of the villains in Season 2. To the point where, like, the person, not to like give too many spoilers of Season 2 of Arcane, but like the cop character keeps doubling down on being a cop, and in doing so becomes basically a fucking dictator, and only redeems herself by basically breaking out of the system. So there is that. We live in a system with a CFB and fairly strong federal presence overall. There's a lot of French people here despite it being on the West Coast. You live in a stone's throw of the French school, and your kid's school has a strong French immersion program. Yeah. See, up so late, you actually caught my stream for once? Well, welcome. If you're in Europe, oh my goodness, you are up late. I missed doing this full time where I could actually do streams during the day when Europeans were actually awake. I miss very much just being a content creator. Holy moly. The moon rules. Hey, how are the new glasses? I love these glasses. I feel like they fit me so well. Like, they suit my face so well. And I feel like, before this I had, actually, they're right here. So these were my, so before I transitioned, these were the glasses I wore before, and these feel like this feels very 2010. This feels very 20 teens, This feels very like the age of the hipsters and the band Fun and all that kind of stuff. And it felt very like this is Tristan in his 20s. And I didn't really think... I think that it was time for a shakeup. And this look feels very me in my 30s. And I feel like I like the way that these make me look. From the second I was trying on new frames and I had put these on, I was like, this is wonderful. I love these glasses, and I want to keep with it. The circle lens is... I knew it was going to be a bold choice, but I have not regretted it for a second. If you need a narrative hook for the post-OKC period, Alex Jones would be a good, useful lens. He embodied the propaganda shifts both in format and rhetoric. Yeah, I guess the story of post-Oklahoma City far right is basically it becoming more and more normalized and more focused on consciousness raising, and then sort of being absorbed into the Republican Party. Um, by the time we get to now, where like white supremacists basically run the United States. So another note on these glasses, and it makes me look like I'm a 1920s German scientist. Like I look like I'm going to make some sort of major discovery in quantum mechanics. Like, oh yes, I have a cat that is alive and dead. That's... I'm not very good at German accents or anything. I gotta work on my German accent because I'm running this D&D campaign, like a short D&D campaign that's kind of based on like noir 1920s prohibition stuff. And one of the characters that I'm introducing, one of the villains of the campaign, she's this tiefling scientist who has the circular glasses, and I'm trying to find out what her name is again. But my guess is that I'm going to try to give her something like a German accent because it kind of fits the sort of like mad scientist vibe that I'm going for. I don't think her name is very German. I'm trying to look it up what her name was again because I wrote it down somewhere. Let's see. Gosh, I want to find the name because I was very happy with the name. Her name is Adrienne Sorensen, a tiefling scientist and physician who invented a machine that extracts the magic out of people. It's a very fun campaign. It's only supposed to go about 6 sessions. And so we're about the halfway mark in it now. All right, so what else? We've got about a little under 20 minutes left to talk. Is there anything else that we need to discuss or chat about? I see that the chat has kind of slowed down somewhat as I dipped into trying to find the name of a random tiefling NPC from a game I'm running. But I just wanted to share Adrienne Sorensen because I feel like that's just such a cool name for an NPC. I did a thing lately where I feel like lots of creative people do this, so it doesn't seem like it's that out there, but I just collect names I like now. And I just use those whenever I can because just a lot of names I like, and I just sort of want to use those. because they're cool. And Adrienne is definitely one of the names that I was waiting on using, and same with Sorensen as a surname. You think you lost your magic around 5 years ago? Yeah. Well, the plot of the campaign, like the main thing of the campaign, it's called Prohibition Arcana. And the whole plot of it is that after a major magical disaster in the sort of city-state that they live in, there was a law put in place called the Arcane Volstead Act that banned the use of magic spells of any kind, and the use of like magic items and like the creation of potions and all that kind of stuff. And it's been a very detrimental law for a lot of people. Fairies who used to sell fairy dust no longer have that industry anymore. They carved out exceptions for holy magic, and so like clerics can still practice, and magic used for medicinal purposes. But yeah. If I could travel to any time and place, where and when would I want to go? Ooh. I'm trying to think of like a big, like, there's kind of two answers to, there's like two ways to answer that, right? Like, or I could think of three ways to answer that. One, which is probably not the answer you're going for, is like, you want to travel to some kind of like hinge moment in history so that you could change it. Like, you know, go kill Hitler or something like that. The other is like answering what historical event you would love to try to observe personally so that you can know what happened. That one I have less of a good answer for. Just because like I can't really think of like a whole lot. I can't really think of like immediately of like a specific event that I would want to see up close and personal. Many of the most like, you know, many of the most important events in history were pretty bad places to be, you know, like wars and shit. And then the other option is like, and the other way to answer that is like, what time period do you think you would like your life would be better in? And I feel like the average person today, even the person kind of struggling, lives a better life than a king lived like 300 years ago. And, you know, doubly so if you're like, you know, like your life is way better today than it would be, you know, 100 years ago for everybody. But like doubly so if you're like, you know, a woman, or if you're LGBTQ plus, or if you're, you know, not white. But yeah, I like that. So like, there's a lot of different ways to answer that. The other, yeah. So if I could go to any point in history, I just want to wander around cool places on normal, uninteresting days and observe how life worked. Yeah, I mean, it'd be really cool to hear like some of like the most important like speakers and like political movers in history, like, you know, to see like an example like Lenin or Karl Marx speaking in person would kind of be a cool thing to witness. They were known for being like, you know, really animated and really like powerful speakers, speaking on like, you know, ideas that would then go to shape like all of history, right? Or, you know, to help John Brown. I don't know. Man, that'd be a good alternate history. Couple alternate history scenarios already that stick out. Like, oh, everyone knows that I try to do like when I try I sometimes do like alternate history speculations, and I try to find interesting ones that are like not the sort of like same handful that people do. I wonder what would happen, what an alternate history would look like if John Brown had not been captured when he tried to when he stole all, or he tried to steal a bunch of weapons and hand them to slaves so that they could break away and get free. I wonder what would happen. Um, or there's a bunch of other ones that I think about too. Like, what happens if like the Council of Nicaea ended inconclusively and they didn't actually come to a set books of the Bible, or like one that I think always makes people really upset is if the Battle of Tours, if what's it called? I can't remember what his name is. King is like Richard. Charles Martel. Yeah. If Charles Martel had and his paladins had lost at the Battle of Tours, what would have happened? You know. That was a pretty important battle, so that sticks out. And then there's another really good one. I'm here for the extended John Brown timeline, yeah. Spacefaring and terraforming Mars are a waste of time and resources. I think that, well, terraforming Mars is I don't know if that's going to be possible. If it's ever going to be worth the cost. It's that's a pretty beefy one. But I will say that like that like spacefaring and stuff like that, like I said, the technologies that we would develop to do things like that would have like benefits to the rest of the world. And I do think that interesting challenges like that do, instead of like the idea that people think that like money is the thing that like spurs innovation, I think that interesting challenges spring innovation, and the innovations that like spacefaring would have would change, would improve life on Earth immensely. And then on top of that, the resources would also not be bad either. So we got about 10 minutes left, which we do. The Vikings who visited Vinland gave smallpox to the natives. They had 450 years to build up immunity before 1492. Ooh. Would there have been enough time in the like between the Vinland Vikings and Columbus for that immunity to spread all the way across the continent? Because the people, the I don't even know if we actually know who the people are. So the Skraelings, as the Norsemen called them, they were in Newfoundland, and the indigenous people of Newfoundland were fairly isolated from the mainland. So not entirely isolated, but you know, much like Newfoundland is today, fairly isolated. And so I wonder how long it would have taken for that kind of thing to travel. Favorite D&D campaign that I participated in before? That I've run or as a player? Because I have GM'd a lot more campaigns than I have played in. Probably the favorite one I ran was was like what we call the Unicorn, which was a level 1 to 20 campaign that I ran with a group of my friends that took place over a period of about little under 4 years. And yeah, and it was like it ran from 2018 until 2021, and was pretty dang cool. I was pretty proud of that one, and had a lot of cool stuff happen. And we actually did play a level 1 to level 20 campaign. As for the ones that like I actually like was a player in, I've only really been a player in 2 campaigns that actually came to fruition, or actually like finished. One was Curse of Strahd, which I enjoyed a lot actually. The other was a homebrew thing where we were kind of in this post-apocalyptic setting. I liked that one a lot because I played a neurodivergent lesbian with who liked technology and guns. And the final boss fight of the campaign was interrupting a wedding against a demon. So that was fun. And now I'm running a campaign that's been going for almost, like, it'll be 2 years this fall. And it is about a isolated town in the middle of nowhere that keeps itself secret, because what it is it's called Refuge, and it is this place where people who are considered part of the monstrous races go to get away from, like, the violence of being in the sort of fantasy world where, like, you know, heroes are always trying to kill you, or, you know, like, and so, like, it's a town that's primarily made up of orcs, gnolls, goblins, and kobolds. And the mayor is a beholder. And the whole idea is that it's like this town that intentionally keeps itself in this, like, pretty hard to access, isolated place. And then the players are all, like, I think it's a 5-person party right now. We've got two kobolds, or sorry, 2 orcs, a goblin, and a leshy, which is kind of like a plant person, which we've kind of made as like one of the like indigenous cultures around, and a frog folk person who is another one of the indigenous cultures around. And that whole campaign is about, like, the hard work of multiculturalism. Like, it's about how to find identity and how to build a community with, like, different cultures. And so far people are really, like, we're having a lot of fun with it, so. There's some fringe theories that the Vikings sailed all the way to Central America and had contact with the past classical Mayans. Oh boy. It's just like how, I mean, things like this do happen. Like, somehow a Roman trireme got, like, you know, like, lost at sea. And because of the ocean currents, eventually it washed up in the Amazon. And so people caught under the impression that, like, oh, the ancient Romans, like, ended up in Brazil, and it's like, okay. That campaign with the multiple species thing, I think, I like that setting enough that I'm actually considering, like, making a published campaign setting of it, because I think it's cool to have a setting where, like, the main characters can be, like, gnolls and goblins, and on top of that, like, you protect yourself. Turns out the main villain of that campaign are turning out to be the Yuan-Ti, which is kind of fun too. The specific thing that I like about this new campaign that I'm running is that one of these sort of events that set into motion the Yuan-Ti becoming powerful again was actually a thing that the players in that 1 to 20 campaign did at the end. So, like, what they thought was a success is leading to the is what led to the Yuan Ti Empire kind of becoming powerful again. And the whole idea is that Refuge, which is the name of the town, is located in like a place that used to be part of the Yuan Ti Empire. So the Yuan Ti are like, this is our land, we're going to take it back now that like our empire is no longer in decline, and they have to defend it against the takers and stuff, and, you know, all sorts of fun stuff like that. It was the 80s is a very fun, it's a way to just say a lot of things. Like, why were things like that? It was the 80s. Things sucked in a very specific way back then. You know, how much do you guys want to... the one thing I did see it happen, and I'm curious about what happens, is like... If Trump... Is Trump actually planning on like cutting all funding, like federal funding to California, a state that pays like a lot into the federal system? I'm like, oh God. Is Gavin Newsom gonna do anything? I don't know. Gavin Newsom kind of sucks, so probably not. It'd be kind of wild if Gavin, if what's it called, the Trump thing about trying to block off funding to California results in California seceding or something, or trying to secede. That'd be wild. Anyways, I'm trying to like catch up very briefly on what's going on with the federal government, with the thing in LA, and I don't know what's going to happen though. It seems like the National Guard is being used, which is what the hell. Anyways, it is 10 o'clock. It's time for me to wrap it up. You guys have been great. This has been a really good chat, as always. I hope that you guys had a good time. This is a pretty chill stream. A good way to spend a Saturday night. Yeah. Guys, be cool. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Enjoy. I guess I'll come back sometime in early July for something. But yeah, thanks for everything. And see you guys around.